everyone, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the second Biofuture Summit Policy Conference and the fourth edition for the Brazilian Bioenergy Science and Technology Conference. In this panel, in our panel, we are going to address investments in the bio-based future in Brazil with trends in policies, innovation, science, market insights, and bioenergy and bioeconomic sectors. I stand for the UDOP, Bioenergy National Union, an entity with over 35 years experience in the bioenergy sector in Brazil, with work aimed at a professional qualification in the sector, having already trained more than 200,000 people all over Brazil. Unfortunately, once again, the COVID-19 pandemic did not allow this meeting to be in person, but we are convinced that regardless of the format, it will be enriching and can reach even more people. We have panels in live and on-demand versions, which enhance discussion on the proposed topics. Talking about investments in bio-based future in Brazil is challenging, as we have become a reference for over 4 decades when it comes to biofuels, with emphasis in our ethanol program, a benchmark in assorted parts of the world. However, we cannot halt here. Today, the biobased is broader and its challenges are also multifaceted. That, which used to refer only to bioethanol, has grown in scope with bioelectricity, biogas, biocurrent, and in short, all sustainable and renewable forms of energy generation. Clean, renewable, and sustainable energy has become even more relevant with the strengthening of the ESG concept and has moved the world of sustainable business, not only because it's termed by the reason of what it represents in terms of solution to one of society's current ultimate issues. The pandemic and its consequence of global mobility, with increasing restrictions in all continents, have exacerbated, for example, how harmful human actions is on the environment with use. For example, of fossil fuels that have turned large cities into with huge risk of human health. Gradually, with fewer cars on the streets due to restriction measures, we began to see the biobase is being a strong ally to human survival in these large centers. This is just one example of how we can explore investments in this sector, and Brazil cannot be left behind. We have to take advantage of our leading role and together expand our expertise, thus favoring our business as well as our social and environmental well-being. With that in mind, we have chosen a select group of panelists for this chat, which I'm honored to leading today. I would like to introduce the highest qualified team representing Brazil. Shall we have Carlos Henrique Brito Cruz from FAPESP, Raphaella Gomes, she's Director of Energy Transition from Raízen Group, Artur Yabe Milanez from BNDES, Thiago Falda, Executive President from ABBI, and from Germany, Rainer Janssen, BioFit Projects WIP Renewable Energies. Now it's over to you. Good luck for everyone.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here today participating in this session of the Brazilian Bioenergy Science and Technology Conference devoted to the topic of investing in the bio-based future in Brazil. I will, in this brief introduction, highlight the following points. First, I want to use one slide to go over the definitions of bioeconomy. What do we mean when we talk about a bioeconomy? Then I want to show you some results which illustrate how in Brazil governmental policies and research done in Brazil have been and are essential for relevant achievements in bioeconomy. Those occur in topics like bioenergy, agriculture, and health. Bioeconomy is a concept that especially starting in 2009, 2008, when the concept became more widespread, puts together sustainability, productivity, and environmental conservation, which are three topics in which Brazil has a large number of opportunities to explore. And of course, in order to explore those opportunities, it's necessary to create ideas to generate new business opportunities. And those ideas come in large part from research, development, and innovation. And in Brazil, we have hundreds of companies that have their own activity in research and development and that work in topics related to the bioeconomy. In Brazil, we also have a sizable number of research institutes like Embrapa, the agronomy school at the University of São Paulo, the University of Campinas, the Federal University of Viçosa, and several others, and research institutes like the Agronomy Institute in Campinas and several others across the country. And there are funders, and those funders have sizable portfolios related to the bioeconomy. Some of the most important funders would be the National Research Council, CAPES, FINEP, the National Bank for Development, BNDES, and state foundations, among which the São Paulo Research Foundation has very relevant grant portfolio related to bioeconomy topics. So as I said, I'll start with the definitions, and I show here two possible definitions for the bioeconomy. One is the one defined by the United States, by the White House in 2012, in which they state that the bioeconomy is one based on the use of research and innovation. So it relies on the creation of ideas and bringing those ideas to the market, research and innovation in the biological sciences to create economic activity and public benefit. 1 year later, the Brazilian National Confederation of Industry, in their document, Bioeconomy, an Agenda for Brazil, came up with a similar definition, which states that the bioeconomy arises from a revolution of applied innovations in the biological sciences. So we are talking here about applied innovations, which is new knowledge created, which becomes an innovation and goes to the market in a successful way. It is directly linked to the invention, development, and use. So when we say invention, development, and use, we are talking about discovering, creating, making it usable, and bringing it to the market of biological products and processes in the areas of human health, agricultural productivity, and livestock. So we are talking about agriculture and health, as well as biotechnology. It therefore involves several industrial segments. So in the following, I will use data considering the National Confederation of Industry definition, which puts together health, agricultural, productivity, livestock, and biotech, in order for us to have an idea of some of the strengths that exist in Brazil in this topic. One of those strengths is bioenergy. As I have discussed it in another session in this same conference, Brazil has a singular situation in terms of energy supply because 41% of all the energy used in Brazil comes from renewable sources. And out of that 41%, 16% comes from sugarcane, which is a strong part of the bioeconomy in Brazil. So you will see from the figure on the right that energy from sugarcane in Brazil supplies more value and more power than hydraulic energy. So it is really very, very relevant for the country. And it's not only very relevant for the country, but also it sustains a sizable number of jobs, according a survey done by IRENA, the Renewable Energy Association, in 2019 found that in Brazil, 594,000 jobs are connected to the bioenergy industry. So bioenergy is relevant for Brazil. 41% of the energy used in the country comes from renewable energy. And I find necessary in this conference to highlight the fact that having 41% of the energy in a country coming from renewable energy is something that very few countries have done in the world. And that can be seen in this figure, which shows OECD countries and shows Brazil, Russia, India, and China in the bottom. And the horizontal axis shows the percentage of renewables in the total energy supply of the country. And the line for 40% is here. So you will see that countries like Korea, Israel, Netherlands, Japan, Luxembourg, United States, UK, Mexico, France, Germany, Spain, Canada, Switzerland, several others, they are all below 20% of the total energy coming from renewable sources. There are only 4 countries in this figure for which more than 40% comes from renewable sources. And here, bear with me, I'm talking about the total energy of the country, not talking about the electricity. It's the total energy used in the country. And those 4 countries which have a percentage of renewables above 40% are New Zealand, Sweden, which are shown here, New Zealand, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and then the 5th one is Brazil. So you will see that the sum of the populations of those 4 countries is still about 1/4 of the population of Brazil. So having a country the size of Brazil with 40% of its energy coming from renewable sources is a relevant achievement that Brazilians should value more in the way I see it. And it's an achievement totally related to what became much later than Brazil started working with bioenergy. Much later became the concept of the bioeconomy. So we have a sizable part of our economy which is driven by bioeconomy, which is energy. Now, Brazil has capabilities in the side of research, of creating ideas that are applicable to bioeconomy business. And one way to look at that is to look at the ideas that researchers in Brazil had tested and have those written in scientific articles published in international journals. And this is a curve that grows steadily since, especially since 1996, when the scientific enterprise in Brazil grew at a faster rate. So each year, about 60,000 scientific articles are published with authors, or some of the authors in Brazil, in topics related to the bioeconomy. So you could think that there are 60,000 new ideas each year, or a number close to that. For example, if you look at sugarcane, Brazil is the country that has the largest number of scientific publications every year in sugarcane, more than the United States, more than India, more than Australia, Cuba, China, and so on. So that's a relevant part that you need to have in order to drive a bioeconomy, having the ideas or knowing about your bio possibilities. Now, the other step necessary to to have a bioeconomy is to have those ideas become businesses. And one illustration for this is shown in this figure, which shows for the state of São Paulo, the number of grants awarded by the São Paulo Research Foundation, FAPESP, every year, so the horizontal axis are years, grants awarded each year to small businesses and to grants which are collaborative, university, industry grants. So all the grants, all the funding shown in this figure relates to funding which involves industrial activities. In all cases, the companies also footed part of the bill for the research, a smaller part in the case of small business, a larger part in the case of larger business. So the point here is to show that the number of grants awarded to companies or to projects related to companies which have activities related to the fields of the bioeconomy has been growing in a fast rate, especially since 2011, 2012. So much so that there is now a portfolio of more than 1,000 grants which were awarded in the last 25 years to companies in the state of São Paulo, small, medium, and large companies to perform research related to topics in the bioeconomy. Those companies are spread around the state of São Paulo, and in this little map, you can see how the evolution in the number of companies according to the region in the state has gone since 1996. And you see that they are really mushrooming across the state. And those are only the companies which applied and received grants from the São Paulo Research Foundation. Those are not all the companies in the state of São Paulo related to the bioeconomy, but the figure shows the efforts related to research and innovation. It's not marketing, it's not building production, it's research and innovation, it's creating ideas related to the bioeconomy in agriculture, in health, in livestock raising, in those topics that we have discussed in the beginning. So there is a growing capacity which should be better exploited by the country and by the regions. Now, the São Paulo Research Foundation also has large initiatives which are called engineering research centers, which are research centers hosted in a university and funded by FAPESP, by a company, and by the university. So there are three funders. 25% of the money comes from FAPESP, 25% comes from the company, 50% comes from the host university in the form of salaries of researchers, professors, fellowships for students, infrastructure, power, water, space, and so on. And out of the 16 centers that FAPESP has in the state of São Paulo, 6 relate to topics in the bioeconomy. There is the Center for Agricultural Genomics Applied to Climate Change, hosted at the University of Campinas, together with Embrapa. A Center for Biological Control in a partnership between Copert Brazil and the University of São Paulo. The Brazilian Water Research Center by Sanasa, which is the water company in Campinas, and the University of Campinas. The Sugarcane Plant Health Research Center, a partnership between Usina São Martinho and the University of the State of São Paulo. There is a Center on Green Chemistry, which is a partnership between GlaxoSmithKline. Here I made a mistake. That would be the Federal University of São Carlos, UFSCar. And there is a center, which was actually the first one in this series, for the study of advanced ethanol-fueled engine for automobiles, a partnership between Peugeot Citroën and Instituto Mauá. Those are centers which have 10-year contracts to perform advanced research and create innovation in topics related to the interests of the partnering companies, which are all companies related to the bioeconomy themes. Now, what I wanted to show to you is that there are several opportunities in Brazil and in the state of São Paulo for research and innovation to drive the bioeconomy. Drive the bioeconomy by creating sustainability, productivity, and environmental conservation. The three things can go together. And that's the beautiful thing, one of the beautiful things about this idea of the bioeconomy. And Brazil is very apt for that. And Brazil has all possibilities to exploit those aptitudes in the future. And some of the topics which are very, very relevant in this field for Brazil, I mentioned here. Those are related to soil conservation, reducing fertilizer usage, which would bring enormous gain to Brazilian agriculture, increasing productivity of the land, and reducing agriculture's emissions. And to those topics, one should add the topics related to human health, which now became so very important with the pandemic. For example, the production of vaccines, for which there are organizations in Brazil which are geared to work in that and which are really helping the country to face the challenges brought by the pandemic. So there are many opportunities for the bioeconomy in Brazil. There are funders, there are research performing public institutions, there are companies, and all those put together can create many opportunities for our future. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Biofuture 2021 Summit. My name is Raphaella Gomes, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. I am the Energy Transition Director for Raízen, and I'm very lucky because I have a chance to work with something that I love and I'm passionate about, which is energy transition. I am going to talk to you a little bit about the role of advanced biofuels in global energy transition and how Brazil has a huge potential to participate in all of this change. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit more about our company. Raízen is a renewable energy company and is one of the world's largest biofuels player. We have a portfolio that goes from renewables to sugar, marketing and services, and proximity retail. On the renewable side, we have what we call our bioenergy parks, which are basically mills where we produce first generation biofuels, second generation biofuels, bioelectricity. We have 1 gigawatt of installed capacity in which we produce power using bagasse and other wastes from the production of sugar and ethanol. And that energy alone would be sufficient to serve a city the size of Rio for an entire year. We also have biogas on our portfolio. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a second. And sugarcane biomass pellets that can be used to substitute coal in thermal power generation. We talk a lot about biofuels and advanced biofuels and what are the usages that we can have for those products. So ethanol basically can be used as a fuel, substituting gasoline and blending gasoline. Many countries throughout the world have blending mandates. Brazil is one of them. We have a blending mandate of 27% ethanol in our gasoline, but ethanol can also be used for fuel cells. There are several car makers that are developing fuel cells that use, instead of being supplied directly with hydrogen, they can use ethanol to be converted into hydrogen inside the vehicle. And that is very beneficial because transporting and storing hydrogen is very expensive and is also potentially dangerous. So if we can use ethanol, which is basically a liquid organic battery than to use it in the car, then that is more efficient and safer, and it's the best way to move from the current technology in transportation to the future technology, which is electric vehicles. Ethanol can also be used for industrial purposes, from beverage to solvents to other chemicals. It's a very interesting carbon source that can be put to any sort of application that you now use fossil fuels. You could, in theory, use the sugars or the ethanol to produce those products. So what is E2G? What is cellulosic ethanol? Cellulosic ethanol is just producing ethanol from waste. In our case, we use sugarcane bagasse and straws, which is basically tops and leaves that are currently left in the field. And we have this technology where we pre-treat the cellulose to break it and find the sugars inside the cellulose to produce ethanol again. Then we just ferment the sugars and send them to distillation in according to the normal process. The good thing about it is that you can potentially increase up to 50% the production of ethanol using the same land, using the same natural resources. And we are very proud because we are one of the only companies in the world that has been producing cellulosic ethanol at commercial scale continuously. And we have produced almost 100 million liters of cellulosic ethanol. That puts us in a very important moment because we now feel that the technology worked, which is something that other companies had many difficulties to put together, but we now feel that we have the right technology being applied and that technology is ready for further deployment. That means that we're probably going to move forward with larger plants. The current plant that we have is a 42 million liter capacity plant located in the state of São Paulo, co-located with one of our mills. And because we feel that this worked and the technology is now ready to be deployable, we're probably going to do other plants that have bigger capacities than the current ones. So this is very exciting because ethanol helps reduce more than 80% the greenhouse gases emissions when you compare it to fuels. And because you're using waste, this is something that can be used not only in Brazil, but also in any country that has agricultural waste that they are not using. And the technology could be exported, and those countries could also produce their own cellulosic ethanol. So ethanol is a very interesting case of drop-in, cost-competitive, decarbonization alternative. And I say this because unlike other renewables, ethanol doesn't require any additional investments to be deployed. Brazil is an example. So even when we compare ethanol to electric vehicles, depending on the energy matrix in which those electric vehicles are included in, when you compare from well to wheel the carbon emissions, a car running 100% on ethanol is still going to emit less CO2 than an electric vehicle. Just for an example, I'm not going to talk about the US or China, which have power matrices largely based on fuels, on fossil fuels still. But if we use the example of Brazil, Brazil has a very clean power matrix. Brazil has more than 80% of renewable sources to produce electricity, mainly hydro, biomass, solar, and wind now picking up. And even when you look at Brazil, an electric vehicle running on energy produced in Brazil, you still see that the 100% ethanol car still emits less CO2 than an EV running on a mix of renewable energy and fossil energy. And this doesn't require any adjustment to the grid, to the infrastructure. This is a drop-in technology, and Brazil is a very good example because more than 70% of our current light fleet is already flex. that means that the consumer has the choice that at the station they can fill their car with gasoline or they can fill it with ethanol, and the car will run on both fuels. And this is something that it's not new also. Brazil has been adopting ethanol motor cars for the last 30 to 40 years. And this has counted and allowed the country to emit almost 500 million tons less of CO2 into the atmosphere. Ethanol is one of the most efficient ways to transport and store energy. And you can do that by using the existing infrastructure that you already have to distribute fossil fuels. So this is a huge example, and Brazil already has this. And because of that, and because of our renewable power energy matrix, Brazil has one of the cleanest energy matrix in the world. So another example of an advanced biofuel that can contribute significantly to the global energy transition is biogas. Biogas is also made from wastes. It can be made from agricultural wastes, urban wastes, industrial wastes, anything that has an organic matter content into the waste. So basically what it does, this is not new. I always like to joke that biogas has existed since the first bacteria digested the first organic material and produced biogas. But what is new is the ability that we now have to produce this at scale and to use it to produce biomethane, which is basically renewable CH4, which is a drop-in substitute for the fossil CH4, so for methane. And that can be used to replace diesel, natural gas, and also to produce energy for the power grid. And here Brazil, you can see that Brazil has a huge potential of biogas production. Brazil could, if we use all of the agricultural residues, urban residues, we could produce potentially 125 million metric cubics of bioethane per day. That is more than we are thinking that will come from gas out of the pre-salt. So this is huge. And this is a renewable biomethane that can be used not only to meet up to 40% of the entire Brazilian energy demand, but also as a drop-in source for other products that need to be produced. So green hydrogen, green ammonia, e-methanol. And when we compare it to other fossils, the reduction in emissions is astonishing. When we compare it to diesel, for example, it emits 98% less CO2. When we compare it to natural gas, it's more than 80% less CO2. So this is a very interesting route to produce not only a product that can quickly replace fossil fuels, but also a product that can be used as a green carbon source for producing other things, such as green hydrogen. And this takes us to the biorefinery of the future. You'll have a place where the sugarcane or any other type of biomass or crop comes in, and that crop is decomposed into several different products, and the waste of producing those products is also used to produce other products. So one example is when you produce ethanol, first or second generation, the ethanol produces vinasse. So for each liter of ethanol we produce, we produce 12 to 13 liters of vinasse. So Raízen only, we are the largest sugarcane ethanol producer in the world. We produce almost 4 billion liters of ethanol. So that means that we are talking about something that of more than 40 billion liters of vinasse each year. And that vinasse can be directed to biogas and be used to produce biogas. And then after the production of the biogas, the waste of the biogas plant still has the nutrients that can go to the field and act as an organic fertilizer. So that is a circular economy concept in which each waste becomes the feedstock for the next product, and so on and so forth. And with that, we can take the optimal energy of the land and the natural resources. So if with E2G we can improve our production of ethanol by 50% using the same land and the same natural resources, with biogas you can increase the production of power, for example, up to 50% if we're just comparing with the cogeneration that exists today. And this is where we should go, is using bioinnovation technology to make the best use of the products that we already have and use them in a way that can be deployed not only in Brazil but worldwide to further decarbonize and displace fossil fuels. So that brings me to the end of our discussion here. I think Brazil has a huge opportunity to play a significant role in the global energy transition because of the biomass potential, our biodiversity, bioinnovation, and the technology and expertise in farming that we have been developing throughout the years, and also because we are a lead case of using biofuels in substitution to fossil fuels in a cost-conscious way, without the requirement of green premiums and all of those things. So I think that biofuels, first and second generation, can play a significant role in global decarbonization. So thank you for watching. I wish you all a great week. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Artur Milanez. I am currently manager at Biofuels Department in BNDES, the Brazilian Development Bank. First of all, I would like to thank very much the organization in the name of both the BBEST and also Biofuture platform for giving me this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about the BNDES agenda for the biofuels and bioenergy industry. Before I start, I'd like also to mention that the event this year is a little bit different. It's being done by a virtual way, but I have to say it's as well exciting and very effective, and it's been a very good opportunity to see discussions about the future of the industry, the technology developments, policies, and so on. So again, congratulations for the organization of the event this year. I'd like to start my speech now. BNDES is the main long-term funding for investments in biofuel sector in Brazil, and this is why we rely on long-term funding. So BNDES is able to finance within adequate terms investments in the bio-based investment, bio-based industry, such as biofuels, bioenergies, bioproducts, and so on. And especially those investments of a structural nature, such as the expansion of production capacity or the technological development. Just to have an idea of the numbers of this performance of BNDES, just taking just the case of sugarcane-based sector, since 2004, more than 60 billion reais were disbursed by BNDES, which made possible to finance several number of different investment projects from more than 130 economic groups. So we can say that BNDES has a very big coverage, and the most part of the sector is able to access the funding of BNDES to invest and grow. Those kind of investments that I mentioned made possible to increase Brazilian crushing capacity by more than 150 million tons of sugarcane per year, and also added around 10 billion liters of ethanol productions per year, which is roughly 1/3 of the Brazilian current total production of ethanol. In relation to the generation of bioelectricity by cogen, biomass cogeneration, the projects that we supported over the last 10 to 15 years added a capacity of almost 3,000 megawatts of power to Brazilian grid, which is a volume sufficient to serve almost 6 million households or over 21 million people. BNDES was also a pioneer in supporting the technological development, and here I'd like to highlight at least 4 different kinds of technology that are now arriving to the market, both on the industrial side, on biomass conversion, but also in the sugarcane production. On the industrial side, we are in a very exciting phase of the biogas and biomethane. We have a very different projects being conducted right now, both for using biogas as another raw material for expanding cogeneration, adding more electricity, or using the biogas as raw material to get the biomethane, which can replace the diesel in the trucks and agricultural machinery. This is a very important step because today diesel is still one of I think the most important CO2 carbon footprint for ethanol industry. So if you can take it from the environmental analysis, so we have an ethanol even more sustainable with a lower CO2 emission. Also in the biomass conversion, I'd like to highlight the development of the cellulosic ethanol. BNDES supported different initiatives in the past. They are now getting the phase of the commercial plants. I'd like to say that we are very proud of the projects that we funded. One in special is from Raízen. I think Raphaella, which is also in this panel, can give us more details about the developments and the perspectives of the growth of cellulosic ethanol in Raízen. And I think she may has good news for us. On the agricultural side, we have also 2 main breakthroughs being now getting at the mills in the commercial scale. One is the sugarcane transgenic varieties. We have now at least 3 or 4 new GMO materials already licensed and authorized to be commercialized in Brazil from CTC, with a very successful introduction in the fields, with even better results and the yields and a much lower cost of crop management. And also BNDES funded recently some projects on the digital agriculture. BNDES helped to develop new solutions for infrastructure on connectivity. The areas of sugarcane in Brazil are a little bit far away from the current network, so BNDES helped the development of new solution on internet on the field, and also the development of applications and solutions that can benefit from this network and made possible precision agriculture or a better management of the fleet and machinery, reducing costs and improving efficiency. Those kinds of examples of the technology, of course, among others that are also being carried out and achieving the market, we believe that the sector will improve its competitiveness in the middle and long terms. Besides of this long-term concern, BNDES was also important to guarantee the supply of short-term credit, especially in times of retraction of private credit, as happened with the various editions of the programs of ethanol storage, including one that was launched soon after the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic. Another example of this counter-cyclical action was the creation back in 2012 of the BNDES Pro Renewable program, which aimed at that time to stimulate the recovery of investment in sugarcane fields, renew, and thus allow the sector to recover its agricultural productivity. Currently, this program, Pro Renova, was reformulated a little bit in order to promote technological diffusion of new varieties of sugarcane. As you probably know, in Brazil, sugarcane field area, a large part of this the crop, the total crop, still use varieties that are currently in public domain, which means that they were developed a long time ago. So the Pro Renova aims to stimulate the replacement of these old varieties for new ones, which are more suitable for the new frontier areas or mechanization and so on. Another action that was recently launched by BNDES on for the biofuel sector was the BNDES Renewable. BNDES is trying to create an instrument that should help to the construction and the well execution of the Renewable policy, which the majority of here should know. It's being successfully implemented over the last year, and in my opinion, it's the most important policy that the biofuel sector have since the Prohalco in the 70s. So BNDES is trying to help, trying to foster this policy, and created this program which is called BNDES Renewable. And this program has an interest rate incentive to encourage greater environmental and energy efficiency and lower CO2 emission from the mills and companies. The programs aims to contribute to increase the productivity and spread the technological innovations, and by that assuring consumers a lower price and also a greater offer of even more sustainable biofuels. In conclusion, I'd like to say that as a result of this strategy that I mentioned here for you, the BNDES has contributed for the biofuel sector to continue to increase its productivity, which not only allows a greater international competitiveness and lower domestic prices, but also enable the industry to grow with environmental preservation, minimizing the need to open new agricultural areas. So that was the main message I would like to bring to you today. Thank you very much, and I will be glad to take any questions from the audience. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hi, everybody. My name is Thiago Falda, and I'm the Executive President of ABBI, the Brazilian Bioinnovation Association. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here participating in more this Biofuture Summit. ABBI is a private organization in Brazil that represents companies and institutions from different sectors that are investing in the development of innovative technologies based on biological research, renewable source to create new products, process, and business models, contributing then to generate environmental benefits and sustainable economic development. In other words, technologies that no doubt are going to accelerate the transition to a low carbon economy. Together with other organizations, we were really committed to support the launch of the Biofuture platform in 2016 during COP22 in Marrakesh, and of course, we remain as a partner of this initiative. We are inspired by the idea that Brazil has the greatest comparative advantage to the development of advanced bioeconomy worldwide, and therefore the potential to become one of the protagonists of this new economy. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about today. It is clear that economic and world population growth and the consequent increase in demand for natural and energy resource, land use, among other things, bring an urgent need for a paradigm shift in the global industrial model. Just for an example, it is expected a 4-time increase in demand for chemicals and materials by 2050. This scenario has been driving a series of actions toward this paradigm shift, and the potential of carbon pricing initiatives to leverage economy are becoming a reality. Not by chance, according to World Bank, more than 60 carbon pricing initiatives are under implementation in the world, and bioinnovation offers viable pathways to turn advanced bioeconomy a reality. But the question is, why Brazil? The largest agricultural area in the world, the major amount of biomass, and at the lowest cost on the planet, 20% of world biodiversity, and a very, very well succeed experience with biofuels bring us a very significant comparative advantages. And I can say that is a consensus. But how to turn these comparative advantages into competitive ones? This strategic map brings in a very synthetic way the main pillars we understand that must be prioritized to transform Brazilian potential into reality. And it starts with enough regulation. Regulation must ensure safety without, however, create barriers to innovation. In other words, regulation must be designed in a way that creates the best possible conditions for innovation to flourish. The second point that I'd like to highlight is intellectual property. Once there are no innovation without protection, then it is essential to have an adequate intellectual property rules that that must be updated once technology evolves. Another point that is very important is to bring to Brazil competitiveness for R&D activities. Another important point is to create an environment that allows competitivity for R&D activity here in Brazil. Here in this map, there are the main aspects that we believe that need to be worked on to increase the competitiveness of research activity and stimulate the development of new technologies inside Brazil. And as I bring you at the beginning of my talk, decarbonization policy must be developed. Our geographic and climatic characteristics, together with adequate public policies, is going to allow us not only to achieve the Paris Agreement NDCs, but also to help another countries to achieve those ones. And it's, of course, is going to generate an intense flow of financial resource to Brazil, leveraging our economic development. And all this scenario together will be essential to the topic of this panel here. And of course, the development of innovative technology is a very expensive process and involves a lot of risks. And then founding bioeconomy and share this risk is essential to its development. This should involve the private sector, but also, as all around the world, it must be supported by public investments. And based on this strategic map, I introduce to you our current strategic pillars that involves to be the voice of bioeconomy in Brazil, to break barriers to bioinnovation, development, and lead actions to promote sustainability and decarbonization within the bioeconomy framework. This is a very summarized view of the action we are working to, and I'd like to finish my talk, invite you to join us. Join ABBI in this challenge. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, it is my great pleasure to present you today an overview of the European project BioFit, Bioenergy Retrofits for Europe's Industry. I will present this in the framework of Roundtable 3 of the BBEST-Biofuture Summit. My name is Rainer Janssen. I'm Managing Director Projects of WIP Renewable Energies, a consultancy based in Munich, Germany. At WIP, since many years, we have been active in research, innovation, and market support projects in the field of renewable energies, specifically in the field of biomass and bioenergy, including projects with developing countries and partners in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. I would like to acknowledge the contributions of my colleagues Dominic Rutz and Cosette Cravaja in the framework of the BioFit project, as well as the coordinator of the project, Mr. Patrick Reumermans from BTG, the Netherlands. I would like to start with some facts and figures of the BioFit project. The project is co-financed by the European Commission within the Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program. The project duration is from October 2018 until September of this year. We have applied for an extension due to delays caused by the pandemic, so the project may run until March of next year. The project budget is 2.6 million euro, and the coordinator, as mentioned, is BTG Biomass Technology Group in the Netherlands. I would like to invite you to visit the project website, biofit-h2020.eu. We have all reports, documents, and information activities of the project available on the website. We are also active in social media. So you could follow the project on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook under this hashtag. The BioFit consortium consists of 14 partners. In addition to BTG as the coordinator and WIP, we have research institutes from Austria, Germany, Greece, Finland, Spain, and Sweden. And also in the consortium, we have industry partners from Bosnia, the Netherlands, Sweden, Greece, and Spain. I forgot the Wageningen University as a research partner from the Netherlands. The objective of the project is focusing on bioenergy retrofitting opportunities. Bioenergy retrofitting can be used to replace fossil fuels or to upgrade outdated renewable energy technologies. Retrofitting is often a preferred option, as it means lower capital expenditure, shorter lead times, faster implementation, and less production time losses and lower risks if you retrofit existing bioenergy or fossil energy installations. Within the BioFit project, we aim to facilitate the introduction of bioenergy retrofitting in 5 industries, namely first-generation biofuels, pulp and paper, fossil refineries, fossil firing power, and combined heat and power plants. The core of the BioFit project is its case studies. The project will develop concrete proposals for bioenergy retrofitting in each of the 5 industries mentioned. The result will thus be 10 concrete proposals for retrofitting opportunities which have been developed in cooperation with industrial market players. We have 2 case studies each for the sector's first-generation biofuels here in Spain and Sweden, in the area pulp and paper, Austria and Finland, on fossil refineries, France and Greece, fossil-fired power, Bosnia and Italy, and for combined heat and power, Bosnia again and Sweden. You will find information on all these case studies on the website, so you're invited to visit the website. For this presentation, I would just like to focus on mainly one case study in the field of first-generation biofuels. In general, in the project, we look at the following retrofitting options in the area of ethanol production. First is the addition of cellulosic ethanol facilities to an existing ethanol production facility. I'm aware that this is also an ongoing activity and preferred opportunity for Brazil. Furthermore, we focus on the production of jet fuels from the produced renewable ethanol, and the third stream is the biogas production from residues in the ethanol production. The view graph gives a quick overview on the existing ethanol production in Europe. Feedstock is mainly starch-based for ethanol production. Here is the well-known production processes. And then the retrofitting would be a cellulosic ethanol add-on using lignocellulosic feedstock integrated in the overall ethanol production. The second retrofit would be to use the produced ethanol for the production of jet fuel, displayed here in orange. I would like to highlight one specific case study, namely our case study in Spain, Biocarburantes de Castilla y León, where the current state of the ethanol production facility displayed on the left is a corn-based ethanol production with a significant production feedstock supply of almost 600,000 tons per year. The products of these existing installations are ethanol, DDGS, electricity, and CO2 that is also utilized. Now, what we do for the retrofitting is within the project between scientific project partners and the industries involved. Several cases will be calculated in detail. Namely, for the advanced ethanol production, we are focusing on 2 cases. One would be the addition of 11,000 cubic meters of advanced bioethanol per year based on the additional advanced feedstocks of industrial waste and wine alcohol. The second case would look at 30,000 cubic meter per year of advanced bioethanol based on the 2 mentioned feedstocks and including also corn stover as a feedstock. You are not supposed to look in detail in these plans. It's meant to show you the level of detail that are investigated in the framework of the BioFit project. Results will be upcoming on the project website in the coming weeks and months on the basically publicly available data of these case studies. For all the case studies, we have performed supply chain assessments, market assessments, techno-economic assessments, and also environmental assessments. Further activities of the BioFit project, in addition to the case studies, are the identification of technology options. So the BioFit has looked at existing retrofitting examples, focusing both on technical and non-technical aspects. Within the BioFit project, an industry map has been developed, which you can see here down below. It is you can have a look at this. It is integrated in the BioFit website and contains a number of existing bioenergy retrofitting facilities in Europe. We have prepared a number of fact sheets on existing retrofitting installations in Europe, and we have also elaborated a handbook on technical options for retrofitting industries with bioenergy. You can partly see this handbook here below. It is also available for download on the project website. So you're invited to take a look at our website here. In the field of industry, a core focus of the BioFit project is the industry platforms, where we basically facilitate dialogue with industries. We had meetings held in Leipzig, Brussels, and Madrid, and overall the setup of industry cooperation is at the core of our BioFit project. In the field of policies, we have evaluated the framework conditions, legal, institutional, and political, to identify barriers and enablers of these retrofitting opportunities. And we have produced two documents, namely a document summarizing the framework conditions in Europe for retrofitting, and a summary paper for policymakers to basically underline opportunities and challenges that and policy opportunities that are faced by bioenergy retrofitting opportunities in Europe. Finally, the BioFit project also includes activities in the field of international cooperation. This is the reason for me to give this presentation at the BBEST-Biofuture Summit conference. We have identified this conference as a good opportunity to link the BioFit project with the international community, mainly with stakeholders in Brazil. So the aim of this BioFit task is to promote cooperation and exchange between European industry and private sector players with the stakeholders from research industry and the public sector in Brazil. BioFit is one of the sponsors of the BBEST conference. We have this presentation that you're just listening to, and BioFit will also organize a delegation at the conference of European private sector organizations. I'm hoping to introduce the BioFit delegation to you at the interactive part of this conference. So the aim of this task is basically to make the BioFit project known across borders, also to stakeholders in Brazil. I believe that we have produced a number of interesting outcomes in the field of policies, technology options. We have prepared this nice handbook, and we have detailed case study information coming up on our project website. So you're all invited to have a look at our project. With this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Here are my contact details, and again, please visit the project website. Now I'm looking forward to the interactive part. Obviously, we were initially planning to travel to Brazil for this BioFit business mission, which unfortunately is not possible in the current period. Thank you very much again. All the best.